Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Griever Productions. Now, I do apologize. I know there hasn't been many reactions of late. I've been trying to get a whole heap of technical issues sorted on my end, and needed to kind of get some easy stuff out so that you guys still have some things to watch. But I do promise we will get back to our regular scheduled reactions soon. I absolutely promise you that. Just in the meantime, this is... I've been trying a few different things, as I'm sure you can all tell. But I wanted to go to this, right? So Reddit is an interesting place. You can find some interesting, weird and wacky and wonderful stories through Reddit. And I wanted to see what would come up if I typed in worst gig stories or worst performance stories. And it seems that we've got one here from Our Musicians, which was 2 years ago. Let's hear your worst gig stories. Before we do begin on this one, please do leave a like on the video. It really does help. In the description below, we do have our Patreon, our merch, and our Discord if you'd like to join in the conversations there. All right, so without any further ado, let's get into the worst gig stories. Working as a musician has been going well for the most part, but just played a gig with only two tables. With only two tables full in the bar, and one of them was my friend's. Feeling pretty low and want to hear everyone's stories to make me feel less alone in this. Alright, so here's the thing, right? I actually quite like these gigs when there's not many people and like one of the tables is just your friends. You can get away with so much, and honestly, it is a lot of fun to just kind of go to these gigs and go, all right, my original set might not work for this sort of circumstance, but let's just, do some stuff, do some crowd pleasers and whatnot, and, make the show for those two tables a night to remember. And it will be a night for you to remember as well. But I do understand that feeling of being disheartened. Like, in a lot of the shows around where I am, there's been cases where... Actually, I'll tell you one particular story. There was one gentleman that I was going and doing these club shows with, and then he ended up on one of those shows like Australian Idol or The Voice or X Factor. One of them, I can't remember what one it was. But he went pretty far on that show, and then he thought that he was an absolute top-of-the-range performer and would fill out shows, right? So, organised a gig at one of the clubs, and they ended up having to cancel it because they sold something like 12 tickets when it was an auditorium of, like... I'm pretty sure that auditorium could have held, like, about 1,000 people, maybe a little bit more. But that's the thing, you can't let ego get in the way. But in these sorts of situations, when it's like did he say it was a pub gig? No, just played a gig. But if you go to a bar and, full in the bar, and one of them was my friend's. So, like, pub gigs are a totally different kettle of fish. Go in there and just have fun with it. It's one of those places to kind of test material out that you wouldn't have tested otherwise. I once played Lowrider for 45 minutes for a dog dancing competition in an airplane hangar at a small airport. We just looped the theme over and over again while singing the hook and then letting the keyboard player and guitar player trade solos. Meanwhile, people danced with their dogs and slowly got eliminated by a panel of judges. I mean, that's not a terrible gig, is it? Like, did they get paid? Does it say here? You win, although watching dogs is pretty fun. I actually wouldn't call this my worst gig. I've played too many empty rooms just like everybody else, and some other totally bad experiences. But this gig has always stuck with me as one of the top head-scratching moments. More funny bad than bad. You got paid, right? Yeah, I think it paid okay. Not my worst gig, but more like my best bad gig in a funny way. Okay, cool. So they've got a pretty good outlook on this. Like, these sorts of gigs that happen, right? Like, you get... Like, it's amazing some of the things that people will ask you to come to and sing at. And, like, I'm trying to remember some of the weird ones that I've done. Like, there's been a lot for, like, retirement villages and RSL clubs, big club gigs, all the way to, performing in the Sydney Entertainment Centre when that was a thing, right? The gigs range from very small to very large in this country. But as long as you're there and as long as you're getting paid, you're doing your job, right? And but honestly, I feel like this would be a mad gig. Like, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Okay, now moving on to this one. Mate of mine once played to no one. It's not a gig, but I went to an open night. It's not a gig, but I went to an open mic night that was set up in a small place. Turns out it had been closed down and left you the option to book a slot on an automated system online. I ended up in Tottenham with my guitar and ready, freezing cold and completely disheartened. Whoa. Okay. Music still is the best thing ever. Music still is the best thing ever. I'll always love making it and sharing it with gratitude. Yeah, wow, okay, that one's an interesting one. Like, I can't imagine too many places that would keep their automated systems running despite the fact that their place was shut down. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I understand completely that it would totally happen. But, like, that would just suck. Like, you rock up with your guitar, you're ready to go, and then the place just doesn't exist. Like, what do you do in that circumstance, right? Alright, so this one here. There's nothing to feel low about. I see it as paid practice. I've played to some pretty empty spaces. It happens to everyone. They can't all be home runs. Very, very true. I forgot my snare drum once. Left it on the front porch. Oh boy. Luckily, I knew the other drummer and used his. I showed up with no way to attach a rack tom, used a cymbal stand. Worked great. I've brought the wrong colored floor tom. I forget a drum key often, even though I own 15 of them. Just keep playing. It all works out eventually. Honestly, that's brilliant. I feel so sorry for drummers. The amount of stuff that they need to bring, even if they just have a standard like 4-piece kit, it is still so much to bring with them, right? So yeah, drum keys, like they would get lost like you wouldn't believe. Like I can imagine them being very much like a plectrum for a guitarist, right? Or a guitar pick, however you want to say it. But they're right. Just keep playing. It all works out eventually. Actually, there's some comments here too. I find it a small miracle if I show up with absolutely everything I need for my drum kit. Yeah, it is ridiculous how many things we need to remember. One little piece missing from a stand or a pedal can ruin the entire thing. It's so true. It's so true. Like, drums are not a social instrument in my eyes. Like, they are such hard work, and man, drummers need to be wired different because they have to have the passion to want to just cart that gear around. Like, it's crazy. One time I fell into the drum set mid-song, still pulled through though. Another time the venue manager brought us pizzas. The problem was we were mid-show and he literally handed them to us while we were in the middle of a song. Why? Like, what was he... How is he doing it? Like, was the singer up there doing his thing and then, like, being handed boxes of pizza? Like how are you supposed to juggle that? Like, you got a microphone in one hand, you got to balance these pizzas in the other. Like, what? Everything can go wrong with that. What are you doing? So we somehow put them next to the drummer without stopping, but then the drummer had to helplessly watch the boxes slowly slide off to the ground. No. What in the world? But the worst was just one random gig where nothing actually special happened. We had a string of successful gigs under our belt that season, and we were feeling good. But then this one gig, just everything went wrong. We upped the songs like we'd never done before. The audience was dead. I forgot the lyrics. We got heckled. Banter between songs sucked and just kept stuttering. We had gear issues. Guitars wouldn't stay in tune. It was a travesty. When we finished, I just packed up and left. I've never felt as bad on stage as I did that day. Just goes to show that sometimes shitty gigs just happen for no apparent reason. We were well rehearsed, experienced, and had tried and tested gear as always, yet everything just fell apart for no reason. I've never played a gig as shitty as that one, and every time I do play a meh gig, I remember this one, and I don't feel bad anymore. You know what? That's a great outlook to kind of come back in on, because yeah, these gigs are gonna happen. Seriously, these gigs are gonna happen. And And when they do happen, there's nothing you can do about them in that moment. Like, you've just got to keep going at that point. Otherwise, it's just going to leave you disheartened and just feeling like absolute garbage. Okay, just going on with the comments with this one, though. The club owner had no awareness of anything, surprised he had the smarts to keep the venue open. This might shock you, but it closed a few years later. Realistically, it should never actually have been a thing. It was a really underground venue that served mostly punk shows and other underground projects. They basically managed to keep it up by squatting in an abandoned pool building that was barely standing. I have no idea how power was even available because I don't think they were there legally. I'm seeing so many red flags, and the fact that you did this gig is insane to me. I do know that there were no actual permits for shows and running a bar or anything. Beer was sold under the table. There was no running... Oh, God. There was no running water, no toilets, so you needed to just use the bathroom in the surrounding woods. The gear was just random bits of old junk that they managed to jerry-rig together. Still, it wasn't all bad. For better or for worse, the guy running it, while being a really horrible manager, was also really passionate about it. The types of shows that went on there really fueled the underground scene, and since it's gone, a lot of those types of bands really don't have any place to even put on a show. Yeah, that's sad, actually. It also served as a shelter for the homeless who needed it, and the guy running it also cooked and distributed meals for them. There were a few shows where we shared the backstage with a few homeless guys sleeping there. Playing and even just going there was quite an experience, to say the least. Wow, I've got to be honest, man. Like, the outlook that this poster, that OP on this one has got, is honestly to be commended. Like, they looked at this situation where most people would go, absolutely not, right? Absolutely not. And they just went and did it. They went and did their thing. And honestly, that's great. Like, just having a few homeless people there as well, people would be like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. There's so much that can go wrong. But they didn't care. They just went and did it. And that's honestly phenomenal. All right, so moving on. One time, my friend's band and I, solo act, were putting together a bill and needed a third act. The singer from my friend's band saw a write-up of a local DJ and thought he'd be cool. Right, so nobody knew this person prior. It was from a write-up? Okay. Especially to bring in people who aren't our friends. Friends Band and I had a decent draw, but mostly our mutual friends, so we were hoping to expand our audience. Too bad he only brought one person with him, and it was guest list who smoked weed in the green room and didn't even come out for his friend's set. No way. Like, why? He may as well... Oh man, like, the guy that was just smoking weed in the back, he may as well not have been there. Like, good lord. The DJ guy literally just sat in a chair at a table on stage and clicked around on his computer making sounds. Even he looked bored. I swear his chin was in his other hand. Wait, he was like, what, he was just sitting like this, just doing his thing? What is going... What do you mean? Like, at least make yourself look occupied. He went last and everyone left during his set. The sound engineer was literally telling me he wished he'd finish up so we could all go home. The kicker was that my take was only like $40 for the night, and it fell out of my pocket at some point while packing up, so I didn't even make anything. Oh, God. So here's the thing, right? I would assume that this sort of gig was what we know here. I don't know if this is the same worldwide, but what we know around this area as a profit share, right? Let's say, for instance, tickets are like $20 to get in. The organizer spends $200 to organize the event and whatnot. The first $200 from people coming through the door will go to the will go to the venue so that the organizer can pay for everything, right? And then from there, it basically gets split up as a percentage for the amount of people that come through the door. Which, don't get me wrong, I've done shows like that before where it's a profit share, and my God, there have been some times where there is no way we weren't just completely ripped off. Because it's an honor system, basically, that the person running it is actually going to just take what they've spent and not more than that. And to be honest, 9 times out of 10, they take a lot more. They take a lot more. Like, there's been times where the band that I was in at the time, we played this one particular gig, and our draw was huge. Like, they said to us that our audience for the night was around 60% of the people that came in. Like, 60% of everybody that came in, and there were about 7 bands that played that day. And it was huge. It was a huge night, man. But we got paid, like, I'm trying to think, because I reckon we saw, it was a very small venue, but I reckon we saw about 800 people come in and out of that building. And our take was $15 each. Like, and we weren't the biggest band, as in, like, we didn't have the most amount of people. So I can imagine some of the other bands getting paid, like, less than $10. And there's no way we didn't get ripped off that show. Honestly, there's absolutely no way. But that's the thing. If you accept to do gigs like that, you've kind of got to suffer the consequences at that point. Okay, so moving on. My band's first gig, we were the opening act and everybody is fully set up and sound checking on stage. I'm setting up my saxophone and I forgot my mouthpiece, which you can't play the sax without, and all of our songs rely on sax. We had to pack up and just leave. Really? Did you? I was an asshole and extremely embarrassed. Okay. Smash cut to our actual first show. The venue sold out and we got mountains of good feedback. Just goes to show, one show doesn't define them all. I completely agree. You can absolutely bomb one time and then absolutely kill it the next. Like, there are so many videos. Like, if you type in any artist, right, into YouTube and then finish their name, like at the end of their name, put something along the lines of worst performances, it will show you a small clip of 1 in 1,000 times that they've sung a specific line poorly. And people will just hold on to that. But it absolutely does go to show, like, the rest, like, a lot of people will focus on the negative, don't get me wrong. But in these particular cases, like, it shows you, it doesn't define them all. You can go up and absolutely kill it next time, and then people get excited about seeing you the next time. All right, so this one might be the last one because this one's pretty lengthy. We did some gig that turned out to be some sort of competition thing somewhere in South London. It was a 4-band bill. Sorry, did I read that right? We did some gig that turned out to be some sort of competition. How did you not know it was a competition, is my question. Somewhere in South London, it was a 4-band bill. I suppose, if it was a band, one person might have known and maybe didn't pass on that information. Who knows? The first guys were bad, very bad. We were on next. Despite it being a competition, we really did not care about winning anything. These things are usually just a scam of some sort anyway. Yeah, I have some stories about this sort of thing. We started our set and got nothing but boos. A lot of booing, hissing, shouts of "your shit." We carried on regardless, did our full 30 minutes as people stood still, and a lot actively prevented others from cheering us or trying to mosh. We didn't get it. I get it. It's a competition, and there's some form of audience vote. Third band came on. The same people booing and hissing were actively trying to drag people onto the dance floor to get on down. Yeah, I see it. I see what's going on. We figured out what happened. Band 3 had brought a huge entourage whose mission it was to make every other band get a bad reaction and bad gig in order to increase their mates' chances of winning. Yeah, sure enough, Band 4 came on. Same lot of booing and hissing. I found the promoter and sort of agreed what had happened between us. He introduced me to one of the judges who told me they weren't happy with the events. I just said so long as we don't win whatever this thing is, I'm fine with it. As it was 50% audience and 50% judges vote. Ourselves and Band 4 won the judges vote, but surprise, surprise, Band 3 got the audience vote. I just said to one of them that they must care about it far more than I do. Apparently, they wanted to win a day in the studio with some guy. So, yes, basically a scam. There's really not much you can get done in a studio in a day. Set up a drum kit, maybe? I'm not bitter about it. More amazed at the length some people would go in order to win one of these scam Battle of the Bands that are just so tired and cliche. It really is not 1987 anymore. Nobody cares, and none of these monkeys is Eddie Van Halen. Grow up. I mean, look, there's some harsh words, but I completely understand. Like, there's been so many times where, like, when I was starting out, we'd do these talent quests and Eisteddfods, and they were basically all competitions, right? And it was kind of disguised as a, hey, you get up and you perform, and then we give you constructive feedback, right? But nobody gave a rat's about that. But then the talent quests, so that was the Eisteddfods, right? You'd win a trophy, you wouldn't win a trophy, and that's all that people cared about in a lot of cases. But it did give you the opportunity to go up on stage and to sing, which was incredibly important, like super important, because I've often said that one performance is worth 1,000 lessons in the studio. Right? I've said that for a very, very long time, and I still stand by it, because there's so much more that you learn on stage that you cannot teach in a studio. Like, you don't know how you're going to react up on stage until you get there, for instance. Like, that's one of the things. But these talent quests that used to annoy the living heck out of me, right? Usually you would go to them, and then they would have a band there that you would give them your sheet music to, and then they would perform it while you sang. And there would be big cash prizes. Like, I'm talking anywhere between the $5,000 to $10,000 mark, right? And people that deserved to win it wouldn't. They absolutely wouldn't win it, because a lot of the time they were left to audience vote, and it would be like this, 50-50. I hate this 50-50 absolute BS, right? Because what it does is, yeah, it encourages you to bring people and to rort the system. Like, you can't just go and have a competition and say, oh, I brought my entire, family of, 13,000 brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, and all of that. And then righteously say at the end of it, if you win because of that audience vote, that you deserve it. Right? Like, I would feel like absolute garbage. You want to win these things off your own merit, not because your family and friends say that you're good. Like, if I had friends come to these things, I would say to them, if you didn't think that I did the best job, don't vote for me. Vote for the person you think did. And it still boils my blood, this sort of thing, because it's so true. Like, in this particular case, right? Like, he's right. A day in the studio, you can't do very much. Like, especially with a full band. As a vocalist, 100% you can. You can go do a full day in the studio, take backing tracks, you can get through 3 or 4 songs. Whatever, right? Not a whole band thing. Like, you've got to have one hell of a setup. Like, so in order for you to get a whole song down in a day, right, you've got to have one hell of a studio setup. Like, that studio's got to be set up absolutely perfectly so that there's no issues, no mistakes, no nothing, right? And then the band need to be so tight that they can do it in like 2 or 3 takes. Like, and how many bands do you know that can do that? Not many, right? It's rough, man. It's so rough. And to this day, still my blood boils about these talent quests and these sorts of audience participation things. But anyway, this was our Reddit stories of, worst gigs. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. If you guys have any threads or anything like this you'd like me to react to, please do let me know, because, I don't know, this was kind of fun. I wouldn't mind doing this again if you guys want to see this again. If not, let me know. Put it all in the comments below. So, anyway, like a favorite, enjoyed, subscribe, do all that sort of thing. I'll see you in the next one. And want to say a very big thank you to all of our patrons out there. There will be a credit list of all of our patrons coming right now.